all now in the same playground.
The question that we think of it in terms of cyber, we think of it as global and universal. But at the end of the day, there's someone sitting on a keyboard somewhere doing something, and hence they are accountable to a law somewhere. So is there really that kind of a freedom that works in an abstract, or in the end of the day, everyone is going to be subjected to some sort of accountability of some kind?
Well, again, if you look at what the Department of Justice is doing in terms of pursuing 5 of supporters of WikiLeaks, there are definitely still physical people using physical computers in physical locations, right? So there is evidence to go after them, and the United States government is pursuing its own vendetta, if you will, against WikiLeaks. So from that perspective, I mean, we're still tied very much to national borders and national laws. So I don't think that that has been abolished. On the question of WikiLeaks itself, I think it's very important not to focus too much on technology. Yes, they've built this wonderful capacity to submit documents, and you can do it anonymously. But again, the power to vet the documents and to actually redact the documents still does not reside with WikiLeaks. It resides with their partners. That's why they turn to The Guardian, The New York Times, and others. They don't have the capacity yet. They don't have the kind of analysts that Human Rights Watch has to analyze this data. And this is why I'm so uncertain about their future, because if they really want to be a powerful player, they'll need to stop being this very exciting gig shop, and they need to turn themselves into a boring NGO, right? And I'm not sure that that's something that Julian Assange wants to do at this point, right? So I think this is one area where I think we need to curb our own enthusiasm about WikiLeaks, because, again, they are as successful as their partners.
So I think it's also worth saying that actually when you listen to the editors of the New York Times and The Guardian talking about this, and you read the very detailed accounts that they've rushed out books on, it's also clear to me that actually the kind of traditional media doesn't have the capacity for this either, that the physical capacity to process what's actually less than 10% of the released cables, and then actually to kind of carry on being across the story, as it were. I don't think any of the editors had even thought about what might happen in Tunisia when the cables came out. That, it's stretched not just the capacity issues with WikiLeaks. I think it's highlighted capacity issues and appetite for long and detailed and difficult stories in the mainstream press as well.
The question for governments, and help me out here, Yevgeny, is that if you do shut down the internet, if you do handle technology as an instrument of an enemy, your economy goes down with it as well.
If your survival is at stake, you probably would rather survive and suffer 50% loss in your GDP than be overthrown, right? As we have seen in the case of Egypt, where Mubarak did keep it down for 7 days or so, right? I think his mistake was that he did it very late in the game.
Well, actually, President Bashir said that he's going to take on the opposition through Facebook.
There is a tremendous amount of learning by dictators as well. I mean, now we're seeing in Sudan that their security forces actually put up fake Facebook pages to get protesters to show up in a given place and then arrested them.
So oppositions and people and so on are using this medium, but governments are learning. So the New York Times probably reflects this dilemma. Amy, the title goes like this: Syria reopens internet access. Watch out, there might be spying on those using it.
And it's not only Middle Eastern countries, it's US corporations. I mean, let's talk about, for example, Sunnydale, California, the corporation Naris, which is owned by Boeing, which sold the the surveillance equipment to Egypt, right? That they could do DPI, deep packet inspection, so they can actually geolocate the dissident voices. This is very serious. We have to look at when corporations are accomplices to despots.
What has occurred that is so threatening to despots is the availability to reach so many people so quickly and to permeate borders and to permeate physical things that were impenetrable.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Empire. We're going to have to wrap it up. And Columbia University, thank you for having us over. So who's the mystery man standing behind Omar Slimane? Physically stood behind the infamous Vice President of Egypt as he announced his boss's resignation. The mystery has gone viral on the web, where Facebook and Twitter pages were set up especially to uncover the identity of the man behind Slimane. One joked that he's the angel of death. So widespread the speculation that one predicted that the unseated Omar Sliman has changed his name to the one standing in front of the man standing behind Suleiman. Finally, the mysteries man's son clarified on Facebook that his father is Lieutenant Hassan Sharif and asked for an apology. A special Facebook page was set up to receive the apology, and some spectacular 50,000 signed in no time. So what lessons are we to draw from this? Well, first, a picture can be worth more than 1,000 websites. Second, thousands of bloggers may not do justice to a single image. And third, if you're lucky enough to personally witness the downfall of a dictator, wink at the camera. Those days come once in a lifetime. And that's the way it goes. Write to me at empire@aljazeera.net or go to our website. Until next time.
Rhythms of resistance.
A part of the struggle and popular resistance is art. Through my art, I resist. Resistance is my art, and my art is my war.
Musicians using music as a way to maintain their cultural identity.
I believe that when I sing to the world, I portray Palestine through my voice, my singing, and my songs.
Songs from the lost homeland. At this time on Al Jazeera.
People talk about televising the revolution. It's tweeting the revolution, Facebooking the revolution, videotaping the revolution.
A new world driven by new media.
This is a very peculiar moment in media history.
Nobody can force me in 2011 to watch whatever I don't want to watch.
Analyzing the media's role in shaping modern history. The Listening Post, at this time on Al Jazeera.
See the world from every angle and every side. Al Jazeera.
The times change. The instruments evolve. The battlegrounds shift.
This is America! Our country!
But the international struggle continues.
He was murdered!
Uncompromising, hard-hitting investigations.
I can't get no justice from no one in Jamaica.
People and power, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies.
We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on Al Jazeera.
This is the first unanimous Security Council resolution to refer a case of heinous human rights violations to the International Criminal Court.
Taking action, the United Nations Security Council slaps sanctions on Libya's government. Welcome to Al Jazeera, live from Doha. I'm Sami Zaidan. Well, it's become the world against Gaddafi, with the UN Security Council voting unanimously to slap sanctions on him and his family. Even his man at the UN has now turned on him.
The Tripoli regime has no longer any credibility. It goes without saying that this resolution represents moral support for our people who are resisting.
Plus, the US president says for the first time, Gaddafi should go. Back in Libya, the uprising against the government continues, as does the crackdown against it. And another city falls. We'll hear from one resident of Libya's third largest city of Misrata. The UN boasts it's agreed sanctions that will have a real impact on Gaddafi and will help the people of Libya. Some diplomats believe 2,000 people may have already died in the crackdown on anti-regime protesters there over the past 10 days or so. Well, the UN resolution demands the following: an end to the violence in Libya, recognition of people's legitimate demands, an investigation into the bloodshed, and for attacks on civilians to be referred to the International Criminal Court, and an end to all arms sales to Libya. Kristin Salumi reports.
Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2011/95 please raise their hand?
It took all day for the Security Council to reach an agreement, but in the end, the message to Libya's Muammar Gaddafi from the Security Council was strong and unified. All 15 members agreed to impose sanctions. They called for an end to the violence and vowed to hold the perpetrators accountable.
It takes new steps against the use of mercenaries by the Libyan government to attack its own people. And for the first time ever, the Security Council has unanimously referred an egregious human rights situation to the International Criminal Court. As President Obama said today, when a leader's only means of staying in power is to use mass violence against its own people, he has lost the legitimacy to rule and needs to do what is right for his country by leaving now.
The resolution refers Libya to the International Criminal Court for investigation, a provision some delegations initially opposed.
We deplore the use of force, which is totally unacceptable. We earnestly hope that calm and stability are restored at the earliest without any further violence.
The resolution had the support of Libya's own delegation to the UN, a fact that swayed some delegations to vote for it.
The Tripoli regime no longer has any credibility. It goes without saying that this resolution represents moral support for our people faced with the regime firing on them.
This is just the second time that the Security Council has asked the International Criminal Court to investigate a country, and the first time that the request had the unanimous support of the Council. Ambassadors said they wanted to send a clear, swift, and strong message to Muammar Gaddafi and his inner circle, but it remains to be seen just who is listening. Kristin Salumi, AlJazeera, the United Nations.
Well, prior to that vote in the UN, the US had toughened its approach to the Libyan